Thanks, Magnus. And also, I would like to thank the organizer to have invited Sequans to that event. I mean, Sequans is a small company, maybe not as well known as Vodafone or Nokia or Ericsson. So I just a few words on Sequans. We are building chipset for LTE devices from Cat6 to NB-IoT. And my talk today is more related to this 5G and MTC activity. So I have a difficult challenge to do a talk in -1 minute because I was supposed to complete at quarter to 1. But hopefully the two previous speakers already deliver all the message I'd like to deliver, so it will be quite fast from my side. Okay, so basically, few words on 5G, few words on MTC, and then conclusion and some questions for the panel. So let's start by 5G. This summit has been started 4 years ago, I think, with 5G. So this slide, you already seen it, I guess, 4 years ago. So 5G is like the Olympics, is faster, higher, stronger, so lower latency and so on. So you know the figures by heart. I just switched to another vision of 5G from Nokia, this one. So it's no figures, but just words. And these words are scalable services for everywhere, anytime, for people, for machine, zero latency. So zero latency, not even 1 millisecond, so zero, and gigabit experience. So with this kind of, I call it some kind of buzzwords. We don't know what 5G would be. So what we know is 5G would be multi-services, multi-facets. So from wearables, mobile broadband, sensor, consumer electronics, vertical transportation, and so on. So it will be very various, and it's quite confusing. And if you go to some acronyms that we are keen to use in 3GPP or in this telco community, you can find this MTC, so machine type communication, LTN. So who knows what is LTN? So it's low throughput network. Some people call it also long fin network. M2M, LPWA, so Wrestling Association. No, sorry, low power, wide area type of networks. IoT, Internet of Things. IoE, Internet of Everything. So I'm not sure what would be the difference between these two. Wearable is a new hot topic coming up. D2D, device to device. Sidelink, direct communication, and I skip on this slide all these acronyms related to vehicles, so V2H, V2I, V2V, V2P, V2 whatever. So it's a quite confusing word, and I would recommend when you discuss with someone just to be sure that you are discussing the same. I mean, typically, I want to illustrate with direct communication. When you are discussing V2V, for instance, direct communication means a communication between one car to the other car with not going through the network, for instance. When you are discussing wearables, direct communication may mean that your smartwatch is directly communicating with the network with no relay or no use of your smartphone. So in that case, direct communication could mean two totally different things, which could introduce some confusion when you want to discuss. So finally, maybe next time I will deliver this talk, I will use this teenager sets image, but nobody really knows what is 5G, but everyone is working on it. And what we know for sure is this 300 of triangles. This 5G will be made to serve enhanced mobile broadband, so bigger pipes, and massive machine type communication, and also this critical machine type communication, critical MTC, that now it's called ultra reliable, ultra low latency machine type communication, this last angle of the triangle. So IoT MTC is globally covered by this massive machine and critical MTC side, and it covers from sensor network to tactile internet, which might require more critical latency and so on. So, roadmap of 3GPP towards this 5G. LTE release 8 was the first release. Then you have, let's go towards the eMBB Euro. the top arrow, you have release 10, 11 introducing carrier aggregation, introducing capability to go to bigger pipes. More recently, carrier aggregation was extended to support up to 32 carriers, so much more than in release 10. You have also this new capability to operate in unlicensed bands, also to have bigger pipes. So more and more LTE is providing capabilities towards this 5G eMBB requirements. However, there will be still work on the new radio perspective to achieve the requirement that Preben has shown in his talk. On the path towards this massive MTC, also LTE has made good work. So first was LTE category 1, let's say the first category to serve machine. And then more recently, LTE category M and this NB-IoT activity, which is definitely providing some very good tools to enable this massive machine type communication. So some people, because they don't really know what would be the additional enhancement for 5G, so some people just are conservative and call it this NB-IoT or category like pre-5G solutions. So there is some confusion or some, let's say, we don't know whether it's 4.5G or pre-5G or already 5G, so things will converge in coming years, I would say. So in terms of time frame, and I just checked, hopefully we are aligned between this slide and the slide from Preben, previous presentation. The 5G work has started in 3GPP. It has started in September last year with a workshop, then in December with the first study item on the requirements, and in March with a study item on technical solution, and it's really going very fast. You counted 280 presentation TDots. I counted 350, but okay. This is going very fast, and it's will be in phases. So phase 1 for release 15, phase 2 with release 16, and what we see as a commercial deployment is that the phase 1 of 5G, so release 15, will be rolled out more or less in 2020. And release 2, let's say the phase 2 of the 5G would be deployed, let's say, starting 2021, 2022. This, when I say deployed, I mean commercial deployments beyond these trials or large-scale trials that will occur in Japan for Olympic Games or in Korea for also the Olympic Games, where we could see some 5G deployment. And in parallel, you will have also the LTE evolution, increasing the capability, providing new feature, and I guess that 3GPP will submit LTE evolution and new radio as a candidate to become ITU IMT 2020 5G official solutions. So 5G will not be only new radio. I mean, is what you said, 5G is new radio, but also LTE evolution. So now moving to IoT topic. You have seen from Vodafone slide that IoT is already existing big market, but also it opens the floor for a new market. These figures are coming from a report of Vodafone. So in the US also they identify that IoT is a quite significant market. So metering, street lights, 1 yard, whatever type of usage, but it's really significant. From Sequans perspective, we have also tried to categorize different types of IoT services. So there are, metering for sure, security, commerce, automotive, and so on. And what I want to raise is that every specific family of services would require different type of requirements from the radio perspective. So if you consider, for instance, the metering, it's a few bits per day or few bits per month, nothing more. However, if you consider consumer, for instance, drone, I was discussing with some drone manufacturer in France, and they say when you are doing a race, you race drone with a virtual reality and so on. latency could be very challenging because if your drone is going towards a wall or a tree, you have to turn before it hits the wall or the tree. And for that, you need a round-trip delay less than, they told me that something like 10 to 20 milliseconds maximum, which is not achievable today with Wi-Fi, as this is currently the way drones are controlled. And they made some tests with 3G or 4G, and it's not as good as they expect. So there might be some work to do in this low latency IoT type of stuff. But I just want to raise that different type of object means different type of requirements, and that possibly different technical solution. And it is where there is a real benefit to consider the cellular IoT family of solutions, because this cellular IoT provides a unified framework to cover all the different use cases. So as Laurie mentioned, if you consider light sound spectrum, you are more or less guaranteed of a carrier-grade quality of service. You have all this security, privacy stuff already solved, more or less, because I mean this is the job of the operator since 10, 20, 30 years. Reliability, coexistence with other systems, and so on. So many benefits of using cellular IoT system compared to, let's say, non-cellular solution. And also, you benefit from a huge ecosystem. So the figures are taken from GSA Association. So today, I think you have 494 networks, LTE networks operating worldwide. Maybe this figure is not anymore accurate. And in terms of people making device, it's more than 5,000 device maker, LTE device maker. So deploying a cellular IoT system means that you will benefit directly from this ecosystem. So this chart on the right side, you see this different types of MTC, critical MTC, massive MTC, and I added a bubble, this wearable, which I am not sure where to place it, whether it's massive or critical, depending on what kind of wearable you wear. I mean, smartwatch is more on the massive. However, if you have some heart monitoring, it could become a critical device, depending on what you want to do with your heart monitoring. So wearable could be in let's say, both bubbles, so I separated. So 3GPP, on its way, is developing toolbox and enablers to cover all the three cases. So I just mentioned a few examples. So category M and NB-IoT, ECGSM. You have D2D, FED2D for going towards this critical MTC. You have also, you used to have a lower latency work item that lower already the latency of the LTE system. So, and LTE it will take some time, but LTE will cover all the different bubble with or without new radio. Whereas if you consider this non-3GPP technology, I mean, we are very good. In 2 days, we never mention, namely Sigfox, LoRa, and so on. So maybe this is the first time and to close. So this technology already exists. There are non-3GPP using unlicensed spectrum, and they are really targeting a single bubble, only massive machine type communication. They are not willing to cover wearable nor a critical MTC. So this is a possible path, but smaller path, let's say. And at the end, for wearable, today, if your smartwatch is using Bluetooth, okay? So smart glasses is using Wi-Fi. So this short-range technology today are more or less targeting wearable. So what I just want to say is the 3GPP path may or replace. Okay, I don't want to say replace, but at least complement in a unified framework all this technology to cover this critical MTC, massive MTC, wearable use case. So this has been already known. So MTC and 3GPP, it has been integrated in the LTE framework. It's fully integrated in the standard. It's okay. You know, I already mentioned it. It was already mentioned by Preben and Laurie previously, so I will skip it. This table also is the different categories. So the red categories, category 1, category 0, M, and NB-IoT are the one to be used for IoT. I just want to raise something that we never said today, is that 3GPP has defined a category 0, but it will, to me, it will never be deployed. It is a kind of something in between Cat1 and Cat-M. And to be honest, Cat-M provide all the benefit of category 0. So it is just a category on the paper. In practice, it won't be deployed. So with category 1, category M, and NB-IoT, you will have a sufficient coverage of all your needs. Okay. So in terms of capability, few hundred of kilobits for okay, I mean, you already mentioned it, you have on the table. And that leads to this not very nice picture, but it illustrates that if you remember one of my early slides with different use cases of objects, then you have, from metering to drones, let's say. And then you can see that the framework of cellular IoT provides solution optimized for the use case you want to consider. So if you are, for instance, if you want to provide Wi-Fi in your car for your kids, because it seems that it's a really critical issue for guys in the room, you should consider a category 4 device, which provide Wi-Fi access in your car and have a LTE link to the network. And this is an object, connected object, providing Wi-Fi connectivity to your car. So, and then you consider category 4. If you want to have, let's say, I don't know, alarm panels, so something that if there is an alarm in your home, you want to press a button and to speak to someone, possibly. So for that kind of use case, you need to have voice over LTE and some good latency, so some good quality of service. So you may consider Cat1 type of devices. If you want to go down to mid-range, then you could consider NB-IoT type of solution. So this cellular IoT 3GPP-based solution, you could provide you a unified way to serve these different and the variety of IoT use case and usage. And to illustrate this, I just put some example of after-sale market for automotive. So when you have a car, you can you may want to have a car alarm. So typically for rental companies, so maybe they want to know if the car is open or not. So for this kind of devices, maybe there is not a huge requirement in terms of data rate or so on. So Cat-M or NB-IoT could be a good solution. Then if you want to have to track your car, to know where is it for fleet management or whatever, you need to add GPS on top. So, and depending on the rate you want to know the location, if it's 1 per day, maybe Cat-M would be enough. But if it's 1 per minute, then you have a more significant amount of data to transmit. So then you may have Cat-M or even Cat1. Then if you want to move towards ODB, onboard diagnostic, you may require higher data rates. So then Cat-M, Cat1, and if you go to this hotspot in the car, Cat4. So just to illustrate, in a single vertical market, automotive, you may have different needs, and for that, different solutions that are optimized for what you need. Going into more detail in terms of power consumptions, we see that power consumption is critical for this IoT type of services. So 3GPP has defined a solution, and there are 3 main solutions: idle mode, extended DRX, and power saving mode. So this, I will detail what is it in the coming slides, but I also want to raise something we are sometimes losing in our mind. It's in a device, the power consumption is often not dominated by the modem. If you have a smartphone, the battery is mostly consumed by the screen, not by the modem. if you have, I don't know, I put some example, a MiFi, so hotspot, the Wi-Fi connectivity is consuming more power compared to your LTE connection. So this is something to be taken into account, that when you complain that your phone does not last one day, it's not because of the LTE or not because of the 4G or later on the 5G. It's maybe because of you are playing silly games all the day on your phone. So idle mode, you know what is it? I mean, this chart on the X, it's more time. On the X is the power you consume. So you are moving, so you are doing a location update. You are page, so you listen to the paging on a regular basis. That consumes some power. So this is, for instance, a smartwatch. So you want to be sure that you don't receive any phone calls and so on. So you are paged regularly. So autonomy based on, let's say, AA battery could be 3-5 months using this type of power mode. But then if you want to have a longer time based on battery, you could use this extended DRX mode, where you have less paging. So you cannot be called immediately. However, for kids tracker, or not maybe kids, but pet tracker, I mean, it's more, anyway, there are some people are selling this kind of product. So kids for elderly people and also for your dogs. But you don't need to have so often or so frequent rate of transmission or being paged. So this solution could be enough. And with that solution, if you do some calculation, you can reach autonomy of between 4 and 5 years based on 2 AA batteries. And then the most efficient power mode is this power save mode, where you sleep as a device. You sleep. You wake up when you have something to transmit, and then you stay alive. You stay wake up some couple of seconds in order just to check whether the network has something to send to you. And with this kind of mode, typically for sensor network, then you can reach this famous 10 years of autonomy. And then I have a personal question mark that, okay, fair enough, but tell me where I could buy batteries that, AA battery that could last 10 years. I mean, when I buy a battery for the toys of my kids, it's not 10 years. I mean, it's, okay. Anyway, this is another question on the battery reliability. So this typically scenario could be used for parcel tracker or things like that. So once again, in this cellular IoT, you could find solution that fits your needs in terms of power saving. So going into more details of should I use category M or should I use NB-IoT? So this slide is just represent how category M and NB-IoT transmit things. So in category M, you have resource block, so resource in frequency time that are, you are using 6 resource blocks in frequency, whereas in the NB-IoT case, you are considering this 6 resource block, but in time on a single frequency carrier. Okay, so if you want to transmit the same amount of data, more or less you have to transmit 6 more. Your transmission lasts 6 times more in NB-IoT. So as the result, you may consume more power, even if NB-IoT is more power efficient in terms of waveform design. So all in all, we have made some calculation that if your payloads are mostly below this 700 bytes, NB-IoT is better in terms of power consumption. If you are above this 700 bytes, better for you to consider this category M. So don't take this 700 bytes as fits barrier or fits frontier of whether you should use category M or NB-IoT. This power consumption really depends on many things. I mean, your traffic profile, your data profile, whatever. So this is just to illustrate that, once again, depending on your needs, you may prefer one solution over the others, but both solutions are complementary. Okay. And also, it's interesting for the chip. As a chipset vendor, we are really trying to optimize the power consumption. So when you are doing chips for smartphone, you are mostly active. Most of the time, you are active in the modem part. Okay. So you have to optimize the power consumption in active mode, and you don't really care the power consumption during your non-active mode. Okay. However, when you are considering IoT, then you are mostly sleeping and active very few periods during the time. So in terms of power optimization, you have to optimize your power consumption where you are doing nothing. So you can tell me if I do nothing, I do not consume power, but this is not true in technology. I mean, a chip, when you have some voltage inside, there is always some leakage going through the gates, your transistor, and so on. So for IoT, it would be important to consider the leakage, for instance, power consumption compared to the active power consumption. And this is a kind of a new paradigm when you are designing chipset for IoT. And also coming to this chipset design, you know, there is this Moore law that says technology nodes are going, smaller and smaller. And this is a price per gate from IBS consultancies that shows this decrease, from 90 nanometer to 65 to 40 to 28 to 20. So Moore law is more or less still valid, but we are nowadays hitting a point where it's not a matter of technology when you are going to smaller nodes. It's more a matter of economy, where it's more and more expensive to go toward these lower nodes. So typically today, people are discussing, 14 nanometers, 10 nanometers, and so on. So definitely, it could be feasible on the technical side, but it has a much higher and higher and higher cost. And the result is that you may not find any more business justification to go towards that nodes. And especially if you consider IoT business, where you don't need a very powerful system on chip. I mean, NB-IoT category M are much less complex compared to category 6, 10, 20, 17 maybe the last one, or 18, I don't remember. So you don't need to have a very dense or very integrated technology to realize your chip. What would be important will be really the cost of your solution, how much it costs you and you sell it to your customer. Your integration, is it possible to integrate not only the baseband, but also the RF, also the RF front end, the PA, all together in a single die or in a single chip? What, in terms of cost, would be very much important, and also economy of scale. If you are able to provide a single solution that could allow, that could work on global market from Asia, US, Europe, then you could benefit from economy of scale. And for that purpose, the equation is quite interesting today with IoT, that you don't have to, you have to think whether it's interesting or not to go to lower nodes. And nobody knows what this curve, what will be the trend of this curve, whether it's go up or stabilize, reach a floor, and that's it, or going down again. So this is an interesting point, and I think today, for IoT, it's not obvious that there is a need to go to more integrated nodes. So to conclude, 5G will not replace LTE. They will do both complement, and it will last for a significant time. LTE will still evolve. 3GPP seems to be the body of standardization for 5G. And 5G is a quite hype, driven by, for instance, the Olympics. And so this is a race. Who would be the first? And IoT should be the next big wave. And IoT will start before 5G. We saw that today technology, Release 13 technology, category M and NB-IoT are very good to serve IoT. And they are very good, and they provide many benefits, and just some promotion to end. I mean, Sequans, we are doing chipset for IoT, and we are also moving towards 5G. So thanks. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we are a little bit behind schedule, but we can take a question now, and then we can hold also for panel, of course. Any question for Guillaume? Okay, but then we are all set. Thank you.
Thank you.